When I got pregnant with Benjamin, I got a Dear John letter. He left. He didn't pay child support, and we were on food stamps. I chose going back to school. I came up the ranks as a single mom. I worked a lot of hours. I had this weird hypothesis of what if we worked around people's schedules and let them do the kind of work that they were excited to do. By the time I started the firm, I'd been in public accounting for 20 years. Could a firm with great technology, great education, provide great service while also providing a great place to work for the team? And that's why we called it Prosper. I wouldn't prosper until my team does. And my team can't prosper unless we have prosperous clients.
You're listening to the She Lift Project podcast, a show dedicated to helping women achieve higher levels of success in the workplace. No matter where you are in your career, we want to help you grow. Now here's your host, Cynthia Kirkpatrick, a CPA, CFP, and Senior Financial Advisor at Moneta Group.
Welcome to another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. I'm Cynthia Kirkpatrick. Thanks for joining us. And we have Holly Breuer. You're in for a treat today because you're going to have two accountants talking.
You know, it's going to be a good time.
Right.
Definitely going to be fun.
We're just going to throw that out there, get that behind us. Yes, we are both accountants, but Holly is a business owner.
Yes.
Started her own accounting firm, Prosper CPAs. So not only is she a business owner, but she likes to work with business owners.
I do.
Give tax advice and planning. We know tax planning is super important, proactive, not reactive. Merger and acquisition, entity selection planning, and just other business consultation. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. So I'm excited.
Yes. And, you know, and I'm sure we'll get to it. A lot of going out on your own, starting your own business, a lot of awards that have come along with that, both in business, but also, before I put my notebook away, advancement of women from the St. Louis Business Journal. That was a new one, 2026.
Just happened a couple of days ago.
Oh, all right.
Yes.
And just top accountant for Small Business Monthly. You know, again, we'll get into this, but you're a wife, a mother, a grandmother.
Yeah.
Everything that comes often with being a mom and working.
Yes.
Accounting firm.
Yeah. So started Prosper. It was the very end of 2022, but we say we launched on 1/1 of 23, and we started with 10 people, but we had maybe 20 clients, I think, at the time. And that's if you counted the same client like twice because they had two businesses or something. So we outsourced to large accounting firms to start, and I would have to back up and preface that the business community in St. Louis is so helpful, and accounting firms in St. Louis have been so helpful. They knew that I launched. They knew that we were a little bit different. We were kind of a unicorn because several of us came from large firms, but we wanted to work at a small firm. So we weren't really competing with anybody. And I do actually always say nobody has to fail so that I can succeed, because there's enough work out there. We're all doing different things and doing it in different ways. And so they referred work to us and had us, you know, outsourced to us and kept the doors open for us while we worked on getting our own client base. So it's been kind of a wild ride. We've grown really fast. We are at 15 now, and another starts in June. I'm actively searching for another, and then I've got another one in the back of my mind that I think I want it. And you and I have just spoken about how we both love Sarah Stock, and Sarah Stock is an attorney in St. Louis that is a friend. And I said to her before, when I was ready for my first hire, and I said, I think I might need another person. And she said, by the time you think you need another person, you needed the other person probably yesterday. So the one that's in the back of my mind, I feel like Sarah telling me I probably need to go hire that person. So we should probably be at about maybe 17 or 18 in the last 3.5 years. So it's been pretty rapid growth.
And that's important in business because often I think, you're young and you're growing up in competition. It's you against the next person. But often in business, those that are in your same field and your same industry are a great resource.
Yeah. And it's St. Louis business community is really like that too. I knew a business development person from an old accounting firm I was at, and he introduced me to a person. And then she introduced me to a person. And then, I think I went to lunch with you, and then you introduced me to a person. And everyone was readily doing that. Nobody was, they almost every lunch they'd say, oh, there's somebody you have to meet. In that first year, that was my goal. I had a goal set that 2 people that I had never met were going to talk about me. And so I went to every happy hour and event and luncheon. I worked, I probably always will, but 7 days a week, because I did a lot of my accounting on the weekends because I was at functions all the time. And sometime that fall of 23, I got an email, and it was from, I'll just say Jeff Smith, and said, I was having lunch with Joe Schmo, and we were talking about Prosper, and he referred me to you, and I didn't know either of them. And so I said, I hit my first goal. I didn't know either of those people, and they somehow, the getting out and the networking, and it was because people accepted the invitation, extended an invitation, and in St. Louis, and I don't feel like anybody feels that it's as overly competitive. I'm sure it is, but I think there are larger firms, and I think they referred someone to me, and I think someone had asked the question, and I just can't remember who, but had asked the question, well, what if that same client wants, what if they're interviewing you or interviewing them? And I said, well, whoever they pick, the other one couldn't serve. Like, if they want someone that has absolutely everything under their roof, including IT people and, lots of different kinds of things, I don't have that. And if they want to work directly with an owner or a director, and I pick up the phone, and, and they may not offer that as much. So it really is who the client wants to work with. And so to me, that's not competition. That's 2 people serving 2 different types of clients.
Yeah, you can't be everything to everyone.
Right.
And, so those different zones, it's nice if you can build the bridge with somebody in your space, but that's different, then you never know. So much more will come to you, and you'll be able to give so much more.
Yeah. And I think probably too that accounting and finance and that in St. Louis is pretty, I don't want to say incestuous, like everybody knows everybody has probably worked with somebody, and so why would you make it a rough go with that person? Because you might very well work with them, like somewhere down the line suddenly, or they leave and they go work for a client of yours, so you end up in that person's sphere anyway. We all seem to kind of end up working with the same people over, different ways, in different avenues, but the same people.
Yeah, somebody will know somebody who knows that person, and life is just a little bit easier if you can go through it knowing you've kept your side of the street clean.
Yeah. I also love CPAs. I think they all work really, really hard. You're not going to get me to say a negative about a CPA firm or an accountant, even if I see an egregious error. Well, it was an error, and I'm sure that person did the best they could, and something happened. But you're not going to ever find me badmouth that person. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, the CPAs are a different breed, and I can say that.
It's a special kind of masochist.
And with what they go through now is even more crazy, masochistic, whatever, than when I was in public accounting so many years ago.
Yeah. I tried to break off, and I was a controller for 3 months of my life. And it didn't work. About 2 weeks in, I knew that wasn't for me, because I like actually working around CPAs too, in firms. So yeah, I mean, we just have a weird. If you like entering your time at the end of the day because you were busy all day, something's wrong with you. But come sit next to me.
and that, for those who are still in that industry or not, or maybe an attorney like you, at least when I was there, you logged every 6 minutes of your time.
6 minutes,
and you assigned a code, and most of it better be billable hours.
Yep. A lot of, and most of my time is not billable anymore, but yeah, I it is that's what we do. It's what we do for a living. Is take care of clients.
Well, you talked about the networking, and we were kind of joking before this, that as you're building and expanding networks, you're at a ton of events. Yes, you're telling your spouse or whoever, yes, I'm going to another event. Yes, I'll be home late, or yes, I need you to do this because I have to go to this place. Building a network is fun and rewarding, but it's work. I mean, it's you got to get yourself out there.
Yeah, and I am an introvert, and it's I speak, and I love people and one-on-one chatting, but it is hard too. And I couldn't even tell you, I don't have nearly enough fingers and toes to tell you the amount of times that I dreaded the lunch or the thing or the whatever, or this last night I was, why do I do this to myself all the time? I have to travel. I have to get on a plane to go meet a bunch of people. And I think, why do I do this to myself? I mean, I paid to go do this. But it is part of what you do. And in the moment, I always enjoy it. It's so odd. And there's so many one-on-one, people are interesting. And I just think people are interesting. And I want to hear whatever story that they have to tell. But it's exhausting too. It's definitely wears you out.
I get it. I would say I'm sort of an introvert too, and there for years had been these misnomers about extrovert, introvert, et cetera. And there is times like, why am I doing this? I'm so tired. I could just go home right now. Inevitably, I pump myself up. I go in there. I get curious, ask a lot of questions, and when you leave, you're so glad you did it and you put yourself out there. And most often, there's something amazing that you heard and learned, or a great connection that you're looking forward to being able to have that one-on-one interaction with after that event or whatever it might be.
Yeah. I mean, I have friends, that and it's, you meet them because somebody thought that you maybe have a business connection. And that does have, so like you and I are both accountants and in different industries, but we both have that same sort of mindset. And so you run into that kind of person, and maybe somebody does marketing or something, but they do it for a business that I also find interesting. It's because that's the reason why they introduced us to begin with. So something about there was already something. And then it was like, oh, there was a friend that I didn't even know. I never would have met that person had I not had a business development reason to meet that person.
Yeah, and we recorded an earlier episode, and some of these things can take years, right? Some of these networking things, relationships can take years. You don't know where it's going to go. It's oftentimes you sit back and you're like, I never would have imagined it would have gone there. And you just have to put yourself out there and keep at it, keep working the ground, and amazing things happen.
Yeah. We do, after we just putting our name out there. And I've been very lucky too, because my team is also, their job isn't business development, but they just are good at it because they just take care of the client. And so really most of our growth has been explicitly referral based from other clients. So we, or from like a wealth advisor that liked how we handled their client, and so that they sent us 5-10 more people. So that's just kind of how we've grown too. And so I have gotten out there to meet folks, and I had to do the cold call type thing, but not at clients, just to get our name out and get the word out that we're out there. But the team really takes it too, and they do it. They're in the day in, day out of causing all those referrals to come in too.
Well, in the beginning, we talked a lot about the different things that your team does, you know, tax planning, strategy, M&A, mergers and acquisitions, business consultation.
We do outsourced accounting. So, but even that is, we have 2 CPAs that head that up. So it's like bookkeeping, could be basic bookkeeping, could be higher, but it's everything we do. We try to do it at a higher level so that those folks come in and at intervals also talk about the financials with the client, what they're seeing, what a best practice might be, how to automate a little bit easier so that the person is not doing so much work, you know, so much data entry or something. So we try to come at everything we do. We do have an assurance team, so we do audits and reviews and that, and we do, you know, like you said, the mergers and acquisitions. I have attorneys that come in and I'll do it from the buy or the sell side. So everything that we try to do, we do with an eye to some sort of consultation that we can add to it. And when people say what kind of client are you looking for? I'm usually looking for somebody who needs, I would say somebody that needs us. The person that, and we do have a couple of clients that drop off a tax return. But honestly, at the end of the year is not when you should be, or like April shouldn't be. April 10th is not when you should know what you owed. You know, I really should be talking to you throughout the year. That should be paperwork at that point. And the tax return should be the paperwork part of everything that the culmination of what we've been doing for you.
Yeah, that goes back to, especially with what I do, you know, that proactive, like really, really knowing everything about the person or the entity or whatever, and those conversations along the way to say what is changing, what's new, what's dropped off, and laws have changed, and how do we use those to our advantage? What's a different way we can be thinking about that? And you can't do it, you know, if the year's over, it's too late. You can't do it in January, February, March, April. You got to be having those conversations along the way, and that's what a good, I think, business advisor is, right?
Right. And I think that business advisors work together too. So, you know, you've got somebody and they're going to roll into a Roth IRA. They should, tell me. So maybe it's in July, maybe they're doing it right now and they're going to owe next April, but maybe I'm not going to have them pay before then because they don't have to, whatever purpose, but they'll know now what they owe next April. As opposed to, they come in February, they drop off the stuff, and what's this? What did you? Oh yeah, I rolled $200,000 into a Roth. Well, okay, well that's going to be a thing that, you know. So if you let us, we can work together and get those numbers to you.
Yeah, and I'm geeking out over everything you're saying, realizing most people out there aren't going to know what it all means, which is fine. You don't need to know. That's why you have us. Yeah. But it's important to have, you know, those advisors of yours that will work together, will speak together, and have that good relationship. And I think, you know, that's what often people want when they come to hire an expert. They want it taken off of their plate.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly what they're looking for. Here's the name of my wealth advisor. You guys go do that. And when we say that too a lot to our clients, you go do what you do and we'll do what we do. So, and a lot of people come in and they'll apologize. Oh, I just don't really know a whole lot about tax. I'm like, how about I'll go ahead? I mean, that's good because I've spent like a lot of money and, you know, 25 years of my life learning what I know. So I don't know how to do HVAC systems. You do that and I'll go ahead and do the tax part. So, yeah.
Isn't it funny? Because I get that a lot too. Like the numbers,
they're embarrassed that they don't know how to do what we do.
Right.
So it's okay.
And I say the same exact thing. I can't go do what you do.
No.
Like you live that 24/7. I live this 24/7. Like that's why you hire people. I mean, we should in our house never try to fix our own HVAC or anything like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like you're, you know, and they'll say, oh, you know, what you do is so much harder. I can't even begin to start what you're doing. So, yeah. Anyway, right. But we can help that way.
Yeah, yeah. And they want you to, don't you feel like the other part I like is the education side of things? Not to get into the weeds and tell them, you know, how the watch has been built necessarily, but I love being able to pull somebody in and work with somebody who wants to know a little bit, like, hey, let's talk about what we're doing and why, and help you understand a little bit. Again, I'm not expecting you to do this 24/7, but I think people really enjoy working with an advisor who will take that time and that energy space to not talk all the lingo, not throw all these words at them, and just say, baseline, here's what we're accomplishing for you.
Yeah. I think I was asked to give some quote somewhere about it, and I because I still remember it because it's still meaningful, and you know what business owners should do, and they should feel free that they can ask questions, and if you don't understand what your advisor said, ask them to clarify and ask them again, and if your advisor can't clarify for you to get it to that language that you were just saying, then that's the problem with the advisor, and it's not a problem with you as the business owner or as a client, because maybe there might be pieces that you're not going to know, like the total law background as a client, and that's okay, but I should be able to explain to you that it's because of that law that we're able to do this thing, and that you can feel comfortable and confident that what we're doing is what you want done. So yeah, I think the advisor should be able to get it to a language that the person understands.
So we're at 3 years, and you're growing, and you're hiring more people. There's more clients, but I imagine setting out on this journey 3 years ago wasn't necessarily wave a magic wand and it's all perfect.
No.
How did it even come to the idea of, you know what, I'm going to go start my own firm?
I've done it. By the time I started the firm, I'd been in public accounting for 20 years. And I'd been in medium-sized firms, and I'd been in a very large international firm. And there were just, how there's just this things that you think, it doesn't have to be that hard, or why does it have to be that? And actually, I came up the ranks as a single mom, and I worked a lot of hours, and at the time things were on paper. We had computers, but we did a lot on paper, and so you didn't have the opportunity either to be at home with the kids very much. And even on Sundays during tax season, the kids would come with me, and I had a portable DVD player for my son to watch a movie while I was working, and that all stayed in my mind about, I had this weird hypothesis of, what if we worked around people's schedules and let them do the kind of work that they were excited to do, instead of here's your work, and they're just miserable in a cube somewhere. Could a firm with great technology, great education, provide great service while also providing a great place to work for the staff, the team to work at? And it just ate at me for years. And along the line, I met people of the same thought process. And maybe 5 of them were part of the original 10 that came with me. They had the same thought process. And we did think that several of us came from large firms, and we personally I felt like a square peg in a round hole at the large firm. There was nothing wrong with the large firm. Again, you're never going to find me saying a negative about it. It was just a different way of doing it that I just didn't want to do. And I also worked with smaller clients that, again, needed me, that wanted to get on the phone and talk about, we're buying a car, and how is it going to do? What is it, and the kind of chatting, which I didn't really have at a much larger firm. They want a lot of things electronic with with their bookkeeper or something, as opposed to the chat with the business owner. So it's what if we wanted to do it this way? So that's kind of why we launched. And that's why we called it Prosper even. I didn't want to have Breuer CPAs, because I wanted to start a firm that was going to go past me, first of all, that it wasn't about me, that I was going to work at this firm. And Prosper was a word that made us think of the people around us as opposed to us. So I wouldn't prosper until my team does. And my team can't prosper unless we have prosperous clients. And it made us look outward instead of it being about me and my firm and my stuff and the Breuer firm. I don't have anything against anyone else using their name. It was just how I felt about it as I was starting it. So it made the focus to me on the next gen. And even when we opened the doors, one of the first things I said was, "You are all my retirement plan." So, good luck. Good luck with that. I'm out. And I'm 55, and I said I'll be out at 65, because by that time we should probably have 3 layers below me ready to go, and they need to push me out. It'll be time. It'll be time for them to take it over. But I said that there's not a lot of all the CPA firms. It's some small percentage make it to a second generation, and our goal was to start with the thought of a second generation in mind. And so then what we thought about was, okay, now we're here. How do we do this? I do work with folks. They sort of have their own career path. They do have to put some time in learning everything. So our staff really, until you get to be about a manager level, work for everybody. Mm-hmm. They do everything so that I don't want them to just decide they want to do tax, because they haven't done anything else and they haven't seen it. So I want them to experience what all of that is for a couple of years before they make that call. But once they make that call, if you don't really want to do tax, why would I have somebody that doesn't want to do that? It's hard. It's a hard job. We do flexible type hours. I've never been a person that's been particularly interested in exactly where and when you get the job accomplished. I just want the job accomplished very well, and I want the client taken care of. So if some Friday someone has a function with their kids and they would prefer, they've got Saturday afternoon off and they'd rather do that, and I don't care. I'm not looking at the desks at 5 p.m. on Friday to see who's sitting there. That's just never going to happen. And I also am as thankful for the person when they do 25 hours, and that's what they do. They're the right person on the bus. They work really hard, and they give the 25 hours we all agreed to. I am really thankful for that person, as thankful for that person as I am for the one that worked 60 hours last week that had a different set and a different, setup, and I think that there are other, especially, I don't want to say especially accounting firms, but we do have such a flux and a flow of our workflow that I could say that it does affect us a little bit. But a lot of times someone gets hired and they have 25 hours and everybody agrees and they're the greatest person and they're doing the job and they're working hard. And then something happens and somebody quits, or you have a particularly needy client. And then I'll see somebody come over to that 25-hour person and be like, just for the next couple of weeks or whatever, could you do 30? Could you do 35 hours? Or for the summer while your kids are at home, do you think you could do full time? And then we'll just until we hire somebody. And now that person who maybe that's all, if they could have given you 30, maybe they would have given you 30. They said 25 because they calculated 25 between taking care of their kids, taking them to a doctor's appointment, doing things for the school, doing things for whatever. That 25 was what they could do. Now that hardworking person with 25 hours is somehow less than. And I think in 2026 even, that disproportionately affects women too, because that is often still the female spouse that 25-hour person is. And somehow that same person is letting you down for the thing that you loved 2 weeks ago until somebody else left. And so one thing I try to do with Prosper is be overly prepared. So when we do hire, we're we hire with the intent that we know that the work is coming, because it is coming in the door. So we try to make sure that we're a little bit overstaffed so that doesn't happen, because I'm as thankful for every person there doing the job that they do, to try to provide. And it has worked so far for the 3 years. It really has grown. Like I said, it's grown. We did have someone that's come in that's an amazing hire, and said to us, I really want to work for your firm, and so I am willing to take a pay cut. I really just want to get in. So what do you need me to do to get there? And this was somebody, and I know the person's name, and I already knew of this person for what they do, and thought, I think that the hypothesis is starting to maybe manifest, that if you do these things, that they will come if you build that. Yeah. So
Field of dreams, you build it, they will come. But that's true. I mean, you think, we're all different shapes, sizes, backgrounds, expertise, personalities, and one size does not fit all. Mm-hmm. And if you have a rock star, no matter what their construct or makeup is, keep the space that allows them to continue to be a rock star, that the culture and how you treat them and how you build that out, and don't take it for granted, et cetera, et cetera. Like, those are the people that will be loyal and will work hard. And as you said, you get the reputation, and then people say, that's somewhere I want to be. Mm-hmm. That's probably the biggest compliment, right? Is saying, I just want to get somehow, some way, get in there.
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh, and I wasn't, that position I wasn't really looking for, at least right now. But then the person could do a secondary piece too. Well, I'll work over here too, and I'll do both of these while we build this. And I thought, well, yeah. I mean, it was almost a no-brainer for me, because I wanted that person on the bus too.
Well, and what's interesting, because obviously you're going to have the technical expertise, you're going to have the KPIs, all the business things, the technical business things that people look at for success. But what maybe people take for granted or don't think of, or think of as soft or not as important, is what attracted probably that person and keeps some of your rock stars there. It's the culture, it's how you treat people, it's how you allow people to be themselves and shine that way, versus making them all fit a mold.
Yeah. I don't think that they should, and I don't want them to fit a mold. I certainly don't fit any mold anywhere, and I don't fit everywhere. So I'm a bit brash for some of your more formal accounting firms, but I love my clients, and I have a really great rapport with them, and we're able to build really fast with a lot of clients because of that. And I feel that way about the team too. And so how they operate within their space, let them do that. It's gonna work in their space with their group, with their client, and we have different clients that love different people for different reasons in our team. And so you want a bunch of different types out there.
Well, you said something there that I think is hard for people sometimes, especially as you're growing in your career. You want to do well, you want to fit in, maybe, that you're not for everyone, you're not for every space.
Yeah.
How did you come to that? I guess where my brain is, we often mute part of ourselves or dull part of ourselves to fit in. And then we get older and we realize, wow, that was hurting me all along, or that was that. How did you get there? Or what was your journey with that? Knowing that, and or going to the right places so that you could flourish?
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, it was hard. I'm very lucky that I am married to my very, very best friend on the planet. And he always reminds me that I'm okay, because I've had some where it was like, but could you work on this? And it wasn't, I just saw something just on like Threads or some social media that was like 51% of job discussions about women are about their personality, as opposed to, it was just some sort of statistic that it was on social media, so it has to be true. Right. But that did happen to me. And it was like, the clients love you, and there was blah, blah, but, could you tone it down? You were a bit loud, or I was laughing too much or something. It really was something like that. I thought, wow, you don't want a happy workplace. That seems hard, but okay. And I did tone it down there. And I didn't even talk about that for months, and finally told Jeff, my husband, that it happened. Because it was a source of embarrassment, really. And he said, well, that's why I married you. Like, that was, kick that South County out there, baby. That's where I'm born and raised. And it was just kind of like, that's who you are. And that's fine. And it was like, oh yeah, because I care about. And at the end of the day, that person that gave me that discussion, I'm not his friend, and I don't really care to be his friend. So why did that affect me for months in the back of my mind? I can't say that it goes away. I can't say that so what I did was, I considered it playing a game at the time. And so then I just said, okay, well, that's not what you want, so you're just not going to get the real me, ever. You're just not going to get the real me. So I just played it close to my vest. And when I had an opportunity to leave, I left. And to that person's surprise, when I left, because it was years later. So, I said, I don't know if I ever really fit in here. Really, but you're doing great. Am I, though? I'm doing what you want. I don't know if I'm doing great. So I'm going to go ahead and go somewhere else. And that was kind of also one of the things that I wanted with Prosper, was for it. I love hearing laughter. And it's oftentimes a real quiet bunch when they really start typing or whatever. It's a little too quiet for me, but that's okay, because that's what they want. That's who they are. But sometimes there's some real guffaws going on too. And, and that to me tickles me a little bit. I like when people are enjoying themselves, but, because our job is hard. So, and knowing tax law and explaining to a client, and even when you do things really, really well, you tell them they got to write a check, and it's this amount to the U.S. Treasury. They don't love hearing that. So, it could be hard. You have to have difficult conversations all the time. So to have them have, but if for them, peaceable, happy space is a quiet space, then that's good too. That's what I want them to have.
Yeah, because feedback is tricky. And I think both giving it and receiving it is tricky. Because especially for women, and I've seen a lot of those statistics too, where women are judged more on their personality, that when there's 360 feedback, often women might be judged more harshly with similar actions as a male. And so it can be difficult, I think, for women to say, oh, I need to change because that's right, or wait, I should be myself. What can I take from this feedback but still be me?
Yeah. And my natural inclination is to rail against the machine, and so to stop myself from doing that too, because you're right to think, is that person right on some of this? Is that person correct? Well, for their workplace or whatever, then at the end of the day, yeah, they are correct. Even if it's different than my opinion. But yeah, I'm not great at that. I'm communication all the way around is a thing that I work on all the time.
I think we all are, and all need to be with how much is shut down early on in our lives. Conform, raise your hand, don't at least the way I grew up, back in the Gen X 70s, 80s.
Get over it.
Right, get over it, and
walk it off.
They're always right, and do it how they did it,
Yep.
and all of those things. I do. There is something to be said for taking feedback, what will work for you and help you, but not losing yourself, and also maybe there's giving things a try, but knowing when to, cut the cord.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing, because that feels like failure, that, I couldn't fit in here, or it feels like failure. But I think that's what, the opposite, right? Success is knowing I can never truly succeed here.
Well, and there is, at least for me, and I've seen it in others, people that are my friends, whatever, as you move up the line too, there are folks that come in with you, or staff that come in after you, and you feel a sense of responsibility for them too. And you also feel that the thing that made life hard for me, I'm now buffering it for them so that they're not feeling it. And if I leave, it'll make it hard on them. And so you have this extra layer, or I have had an extra layer of worrying about what's going to happen to my client if I leave, and what's going to happen to this person if I leave. And so that keeps you around a little bit longer too, putting up with it. But at some point, I think that exact thing, that thought process turned in my brain and went, I am so worried about that other person because it's not the right space. And this isn't where I should be. And they are going to have to make that decision on their own. And I'm going to have to go, we're all going to have to be adults and figure out what we want to do here. If we all were working harmoniously, these questions wouldn't even be coming up. And I wouldn't even be worried about that. But I am. So, it's just, all of a sudden I had a weird kind of epiphany that it was like, that's why I'm so worried about this person. It's because I'm in a place that I don't really want to be.
Yeah, and the culture and the environment is so important to not only our career trajectory and our success professionally, technically, but well-being, emotional health, physical health, all of that extends beyond, can I stay here and get that promotion that I want?
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of where I was too. Now, and like I said, when I started Prosper, we were out there, at a time, well, there's a lack of people coming through to be accountants. And the managers and the senior managers in that higher group of management, they're getting killed. They still are, but they've been constantly killed for a decade at least out there. And so that was, I was really worried when we started. I knew the work was there, but could I hang on until the work found us, basically? I was lucky that I had some different lunches at the very beginning. One was with a person that I bank with, and she said, "You guys are like a unicorn, just hang in there," because the larger firms wanted to buy the firm before I even had clients. And it's because, all of these bodies were like together as a team. We want that, like already put together. And there was a little bit of a pressure to kind of say no, but I did every person, I let them vote, and nobody voted to go as a group and be a team in a larger firm. And so I felt a little better with Prosper because I knew that we were all on the same page, and that was a plus to have that. They all wanted to be in a small firm doing what we do. So I at least had that little bit that kind of boosted what we were doing, that I felt like we were on the right track with that group, with that particular group. Yeah.
Well, in starting the business, what were the challenges, and/or was there something that surprised you that you weren't prepared for, to the positive or the side?
I probably have a positive, and I probably have it's not a negative. It was a surprise, really. And it goes back to communication again. Because, like I said, before I started the firm, I'd been in public accounting for 20 years, and I'd been in management and upper management in public accounting firms. And so I know the business of public accounting. But I also am a very transparent person. If you ask me, I'm not hiding anything in the background. We look at the financials together. The whole firm looks at the firm's financials, so they see where we're at. They all know everything. They see the balance sheet. Then, I don't hide anything from anyone. And we talk about where we're headed, how we're going to do. But I have always been the kind of person who thought, I don't need to know the boss's hopes and dreams about it. I want to know what my expectations are, what you want me to do, how you want me to grow. I want feedback, and then I also want to know, like, the intent. But as the owner, they did kind of want to know what my hopes and dreams and feelings were, and it was weird for me. And it wasn't my first inclination to do that. But I would keep finding, like, I would say something, so we're going to do this now. This is a policy or procedure we're putting into place. And then I would get a couple of weeks back, something would come back to me that I said X, or it was because of Y. And I'm like, I didn't even think that. And I realized that they were just filling in the spaces because I left the space open. And sometimes it would be somebody talking with just maybe that's what they thought I thought. Sometimes it would be maybe that's what they wanted me to think. So they would kind of say that's what I said. And so it was kind of a surprise to me that anybody cared that much. Again, with the Gen X, nobody cares what what we think. Nobody cares what my dreams were. So I started finding that and this is I'm going to have to work on for, like, the rest of my life. I mean, I'm not good at that even now, but I try to give a little color commentary now to why we're doing something or why something, I feel like maybe something may or may not work. And why I disagree. Not just that I disagree or that I do agree, but not just that I agree, but why I actually agree with what they're doing. So that one surprised me. Somebody they really want to know what the boss is thinking, it's what they would say to me. We really want to know what the boss is thinking. And that seems odd to me. And I don't feel like a boss. I feel like we're all together. But I have to also remember how you're seeing it. And I may want us to be, one big team, and we are, but then they do recognize that there's another level, and they want to know what that is. What's going on. And I think that also puts people at ease to know that I actually did think through it. I did have a thought process on it. And I do on almost anything. I mean, I tell people that you may disagree with my thought process, but I had one, and let's talk about that. But if I didn't have a thought process on it, then I have no business opining in any way. And let's all get together and come up with it together. But they did want to know that. That was odd. One of the things that we had to change, it did grow pretty rapidly. Like the first May, we finished tax season. We brought in, like, I want to say 35 clients in like 3 weeks or something in that May, after, when people were coming over. And one of the very first policy procedures was onboarding, how to really onboard the clients, how to really make sure that we don't miss anything. That was like one of the first things that we had to do. And that was a happy surprise that was one of the first things that we had to get into place, was because we had so many so fast. It doesn't stay like that, clearly. But it was at the beginning, a deluge, and how to make sure that each one of those people is accounted for and that somebody cares and is taking care of them right away. So we had to get that going.
And as a fellow accounting mind, we were talking on the prior podcast about the DISC and D's and C's, and like, I'm a C and I am logical, and I'm often like, all right, here's our answer. Let's go. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And it's like, take a step back. and talk about the intent and the color behind it and sometimes the emotion behind it.
Yeah.
I forget that and have to remind myself. And as I'm sitting here listening to you talk, I'm thinking, knowing some of your background already that we haven't shared yet, that, middle management, upper management, starting this firm, it's growing successfully.
Yeah.
But you didn't start that way. You didn't even really start kind of in accounting.
No.
This was through difficulties and hard work and all that. I want to let you tell the story if you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, first of all, I'm the lone D of the 15 of us. So I'm in a seat by myself too, which is why I also have to work on my communication, because I'm the only one that doesn't. I talk differently than they do. Yeah. So I was 20 when I was 21 years old. I got engaged and pregnant to my daughter Alyssa, and got married. And it was not a good match. He was in the Air Force, so we didn't really see each other much during the pregnancy. And he was in Egypt for about 3 or 4 months of it. It was during Desert Storm. That's how long, 93. And then he came back, unfortunately. But he came back, and we just didn't get along. And when I got pregnant with Benjamin, who is now, he'll be 28 next month, I got a Dear John letter, a Dear Holly letter left on the kitchen table that, he'd moved on. And my mother and I will both say to this day it was the kindest thing that he ever did, because I think I'm the type of person, I am tenacious and I persevere, and I might be married to the man today if he hadn't have done that, and it would have been an awful existence. So we weren't meant to be, and it was, he left. It didn't feel great at the time because at that point I think I was 27, so it was about 5 years later. I don't think we made it to our 5th year anniversary together. But when he left because he'd been in the Air Force. His family was in Seattle, Washington, and he left St. Louis. So we didn't have, he didn't pay child support. He went, everything was getting paid under the table by people, and so he took off. So it was just the kids and I. We started on WIC, which was just cheese and some King vitamin cereal or whatever. It was awful. It was just, I don't know. And I could understand how people could survive on that much cheese, eggs, and I think that was about it. And when Ben and my son, whose story is not mine to tell, but he was asthmatic. And so I actually, while still married, had gone to cosmetology school. And I got my Class CA license in hairstyling. At one point, I was a CA and a CPA. I had my hairstyling and my CPA license. I did let the CA fall at some point. I wanted to keep it forever, but I just let it go. But so I did hair, but he had strong asthma, and he also had issues at the time. We didn't know at the time. He's on the spectrum, but we didn't know that. But when I left, it was hard for him. So I couldn't do that. I couldn't work. I didn't make enough, for us. So my parents had bought my home, and I lived with them and the 2 kids at their house. And we were on Medicaid, and we were on food stamps, and I think something like $269 a month in actual cash, that we got. And I would put the cash in envelopes, and it marked gas, whatever, shoes, clothes, whatever. And when the money was out of the envelopes, my parents helped. I'm not going to act like they didn't help. My God, they helped as much as they possibly could, but they were getting ready to retire. And so a lot of their money was going into their 401k and that kind of thing, like for retirement. And, my parents were very, very, very hardworking people. My mom worked at a factory, and my dad did cement. He was a cement mason. When my dad retired at 55 from the company, he had already had 40 years on. And they had to go back, the actuaries, and redo his retirement because they didn't have 40 years, when they did an early buyout for him at 55. But he had, he'd been on his knees his whole life and out in the cold and had heart issues and things. So they were incredibly hardworking people, but they didn't make a ton of money. And they, for 3 more mouths to feed. When Ben turned 2, I had social workers. You have social workers when you do that. And when he turned 2, they told me that by the time he was 3, I had the option of going to work full time, or I could go back to school. I had those options until they're 5. Then you have to be working full time, period. So I chose going back to school. I had 60 hours, but I knew this is kind of an opportunity for me because full-time school is not full-time work. It's 10 hours or something physically at the place, and the rest is studying. And I thought I would be maybe work at a bank or something. I just thought that would be something that I could tell people and I could be proud of, that I'm a bank teller. I always thought I'd do something like that. And then I'd be off in banker's hours. Like I could be off on, President's Day or whatever when the kids are off. And that's just what I thought I'd do. So I go back to school, and I get in, before I went to school, I sold my engagement ring to buy the books. I borrowed the money. I had the 60 hours, but I hadn't taken like a SAT or anything in a decade. I guess at that point I was about almost 29. And I got all these books, and they were so big. These big business the accounting books are like,
oh, I remember.
Yeah, $350 book, for one semester. And I was driving home, and I just pulled over to the side of the road because I was crying so hard, because how am I going to do this? This is the dumbest thing I've ever done. I just don't even know what I'm doing. And I made it home and got to got back and went to class. It wasn't like I was excited about it. It was I had to do it. And I knew things were up with Ben at that point. I knew he needed some special help. And so I couldn't work full time anyway. So I was like, okay, this is my only option. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to read the chapters, and I'm just going to go to class, come back, and actually, which I didn't the first round. You know what I mean? Like with the kids when they go to school, they do what they can. This was just, I'm going to read it. It's all I can do. Sit at the front of the class and read. And the grades started coming in, and I started doing well, and I started really liking it. And I had a professor that I was going to do finance for the banking, and I had straight A's at that point. All the professors used to have to sign off on my attendance. I had an attendance sheet that I had to bring to my social worker. And after I got the A's, I didn't have to anymore. But for the first semester, every Friday, I'd have to ask all my professors to sign off. They were very kind about it. Nobody asked a question. Everybody was really nice. And I went every time. I would have anyway, but you also had to have signatures. But, So after that first semester, I was like, okay, I think I got a handle on this. But my professor said, you should probably take accounting because you got straight A's. In the future, a CPA can do finance, but a finance person can't be a CPA. So you need to, I want you to have that option. So you should go get some accounting classes. And luckily I went, and I had a professor who was young and vibrant and made it fun and talked about it. And I went home and I would study. The kids would go to bed at like 8 o'clock, and I'd study till about midnight, and then I'd sleep till about 4 a.m, and then I'd get up, and then I'd study till they got up. So maybe till about 6 or 7. So I get about that many hours, studying every day. But I'd lose myself in it because everything around me was hard. To just, you'd be working really hard, and to just be reminded at the grocery store that you're on food stamps. To just be reminded that Alyssa couldn't do dance class anymore because you just couldn't afford it. And she was so good that they wanted her to be on their travel team. And that's when I knew she couldn't do it anymore, because I couldn't afford the shoes for her to do it anymore. And Ben needed a lot of help with, at this point, I think by the time he hadn't gotten to kindergarten yet, so we didn't have the diagnosis yet, but he had already now he's got speech therapy and some other therapy coming. So I needed to be home for that too. So all of that was hard, whatever was going on with Ben and the disappointment I was with my daughter and all of those things. But if you did your T thing right, you did your little T, and the debits equaled the credits, and then if you did that, they always balanced, and they worked. And then you did the income statement, and then that flowed into your balance sheet, and there it is, and your balance sheet balances, and then the income statement comes in, and if you do everything right, it's right. And I'd been trying to do everything else right, and it didn't matter at the time. And so now if I did those things right, it did. And so I couldn't stop. I just got this weird addiction to getting all of that right. And then school was a joy. It was a way to get out, a way to make my brain just exploded with all of these things and the things I was learning. And the first round, school was like, ugh. In this round, it was like, I'm privileged to be here learning these things. I want to learn these things. And the professors were so good. I was at with Fontbonne, which it's not even open anymore. But the professors I had were just lovely, and they knew how hard I was trying. And I had one professor that I found out I had a parent-teacher conference, and I had left. And then he just stopped the class because he wanted me to hear it. And he just told everybody, you're all dismissed. I'm going to do this next. I will do this on Wednesday when Holly's back. Because he knew that I was the one in the front, in the middle. And he didn't want me to miss out. And I think that was like some kind of statistics or something to class. So it was really, I really enjoyed it that much. That I did really well. I enjoyed it. I went on to get a CPA. Currently, you have to have 150 hours. The law is changing. Things are changing. But 20 years ago, certainly. So I had to stay. I got my master's degree. So I got my MBA. By that time, I was doing really well in class. And then I got an internship and I originally had been denied the internship because I was a single mom. I didn't know that. My advisor knew. They made some kind of comment that they didn't know I'd be able to work as much as someone else, but their big wig number one kid dropped out on them and went Big Four at the last minute, and so they had an opening, and that's how I got in. And really by February they had hired me full time for after the internship because I did work that much, and I did do that. And that was kind of the start. So I just worked my way up. I started as an intern and worked my way all the way up to owning a firm.
Yeah, challenge, hard work. Starting over, quote, air quotes, at 29, and faced with unimaginable hardships.
It was hard. People have it hard. I look back on it was a lot of years ago too. I was young too. I mean, 29. I was young.
Right.
I was still a baby. So it was like I had the energy and the strength, and I've always just thought, why can't I do it? Like, other people do this. Why can't I do that? And it's just always kind of been in my mind. Like, if somebody else can do it, I can figure it out. And we all have gifts and talents, and tenacity is one of mine. I will just do it. I'll run into a brick wall 15 times with my head if that's what is needed to get through the brick wall. It's not always, I don't always do it the right way. I don't always, maybe I could have opened the door, but I will. Challenges are just, and like I said, I grew up in a family that worked really hard, and I didn't work as hard as I do to get where I'm at. I didn't do it to get promoted or to own a firm. That wasn't my long-term goal at the time. It was, I don't know any other way, because that's all I saw. I mean, my family, you just worked. That wasn't. You did what you had to do, and so I think no matter what I would have chosen to do, I would have been dogged about it.
And I'm sure, that tenacity, that the history and the road and journey you just shared, wanting to. I'm sure, again, you bring that to your clients, you bring that to your team, you bring that to the firm, and that's what they're responding to, is that hard work, that care, that wanting to get it right, do right. We're going to figure out a way to get it done. I'm sure that plays through in everything that you've built.
Yeah. Well, I would hope. I hope so. I also have to be careful, too, because I do realize that everybody doesn't have those feelings. Do you know what I mean? And that's been a thing that it's been a challenge for me. I have a business coach. I don't know if you know Kelly Reese. Mm-hmm. She's wonderful, and I started working with her last year, and she helps me with that, to remember too, because also it wasn't a good, like I said, my first marriage wasn't a good relationship, and one of the things that he used to say, because I stayed at home, was that he put the roof over my head. And everybody doesn't have a burning in their gut that says, nobody will say that to me again, like I have. That's not everybody's background. And I have to remember that they wanted a work-life balance. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, and I am truly grateful and thankful that of every hour that a person gives. So I just also have to sometimes turn my own brain off, because my background is not that person's background.
Yeah, your background, your why, your all of that is going to be different. And how do you bring that how do you have that as part of your presence, both as a leader, owner, and also as an advisor to all these businesses and business people too?
Well, a lot of business people do have the same sort of background that I do. Not background, but the same sort of, they come to it with the same mindset. So I do think I speak their language. How do I bring it to the workplace? And that I try to think too, I don't want anybody to ever do that. I don't want anybody to have to feel the way I felt. I don't want anybody to have gone through what I went through, and that includes all the way up with the work and being in the office as much as I have. Way back in the day, we, you just worked that much. I mean, you just did, and if you didn't, somebody else was going to. So I missed a lot of my kids' lives that I don't want anybody else to have that, and now I'm a grandma. So, Alyssa's, she's got two. We have two babies. She's a 3 and a 2-year-old, and they're amazing. And she actually works for the firm doing our social media. And my kids are not accountants. They ran screaming from that they're not, they didn't follow in my footsteps by any stretch. But so she does the social media and the marketing and that, and she works a lot from home. She works from home, and that's and she's changed it to have different hours and have, that suits her family. And I'm so glad and grateful that she has that. I don't want her to have the same. And so I try to think about that too when I get to the office, that I want them to have. I really want the staff to have a different life than I had coming up.
Yeah, and that's a challenge, I think, for a lot of women, right? The having to and wanting to. Like, I love what I do. I love knowing things. I love being at that level. But I guess you miss out on things, but you miss out on things compared to, a mom who worked part-time, or a mom who stayed home, or whichever, and rewriting that narrative in our brains and society as to, it's a struggle. I mean, there's mom guilt. It's a struggle. I don't know if you had that, and I'm sure plenty of women have that, and what you would say to that, or what you think of it now.
I think every woman has all those situations you described. They have a different guilt for it all the time. I don't know if I would have been a great stay-at-home mom anyway. I hate to say that. I mean, because my brain just goes a lot, and I don't know if I would have been a lot
right
behind closed doors all day. But I definitely had it, and I as people are coming up, as women are coming up, they're going to feel, I think you're going to feel that way no matter what you do. I'm probably always going to have it. I don't know if I had it when I was deep in, because we didn't have anything. And I don't know if, especially at the very beginning, we didn't have it. I have it probably more now, because sometimes I'll still work it, because to me, now I'm in a different place. I'm doing, like I said, I don't know how to be different. I luckily have a really, again, my husband's super independent. We have a life that's together, but he feels no problem. He doesn't have an issue with me working whatever the hours. He just be safe, whatever, I'll see you when you get home. And it's pretty rare that he has ever said anything like, thought you'd be home. And usually he says it. He said it this past tax season, because I had a bit longer than I I did a little bit more. But it was more, it was definitely aimed at, maybe you need to take a minute off, to me, not about himself. It was more like, right. He said, I didn't think you were gonna do this like this right now. And it was more like, you might want to remind yourself to go to yoga or something. You know what I mean? You might want to remind yourself that you don't have to do it like this. So I don't really, but I look back now, and especially when we couldn't afford anything else, so I just did. I just worked, and again, that was the career you were in, and you couldn't do any. I didn't know how to do different things. There was always a reason, I guess. I look back, and there are some times I'm not gonna, but there's no reason to lie at this point. Sometimes it's easier to go to work when things are hard around the house. Sometimes it's easier to have to work an extra couple of hours than to deal with something. Do I wish I had handled those things a little better? Probably. But I handled them the only way I knew how at the time, how to do it. And now this is the only life we know, So I think what I would say to other women, I don't think we should be looking at each other. And I think that you should be okay with the life that you chose. If you are okay with the life you chose. If you're not okay with it, then I think it's time to take a step back and think, why am I not okay with it? Am I really guilty? Or am I unhappy? Because I think that we should stop making ourselves feel guilty and stop making others feel guilty. But I do think sometimes it's not guilt, it's they don't like what they're doing. And it feels like that feels like guilt to us. If you love what you're doing, I think you need to let yourself love your life and let yourself love what you're doing. And I think that we should all be looking at your kids are going to see somebody who's happy, who's doing something they love, that's doing something important. And, you know, that's the kind of, that they can have that kind of lifestyle of a energized person, even if you're working a lot, or if you're home, or if you're whatever. Because then the stay-at-home moms have guilt about things. Right. It's like, we all have it, you know, but if you love being a stay-at-home mom and you have a great life and, you know, love that, embrace that. And I wish the absolute best for all of that, for everyone.
I think that's before we head into the last piece, that's an important part of, you know, be present and give yourself the time and space to be happy and to love where you're at, because sometimes we're just so focused on the next thing that we forget to do that. When we think about the businesses, the people that you work with, mm-hmm. Who is that and how do they most easily find you?
The businesses are usually, I say small, but not tiny. So usually can we talk revenues? I mean, like revenues between like $1 million and 150, as long as it's like a family-owned type business. We do a lot with service industry, but we recently, really the last 3 or 4 years, done more and more with construction as well. But I just cut my teeth on service, so physicians, lawyers, IT, worked with them. That's what we started. That was kind of the group we started with. And like I said, I like owners that need a little bit something. So if, you know, you might have a great team, but if you want a sounding board, if you want to meet quarterly, if you want to, you know, really get an idea of the numbers, or if you want even a emailed discussion about bullet points of the numbers, not somebody that we don't really, like I said, the compliance piece should be paperwork. We really should be somebody that wants us in the middle of things. We do a little bit more touch. We also work, like I said, with high net worth individuals. So we like to work with third party advisors like you. So we like to work with attorneys. We like to work with wealth advisors. We like to work with other advisory groups that are helping people. Because again, that kind of group, if they've got a lot of different kind of holdings, we do a lot with folks too that have real estate. So that own real estate or investing in real estate, we work with a lot of folks that have that too. So how they would find us, you can call our main line. Do you want me to give numbers or anything? Well,
and they can go on to Prosper CPAs
website.
Yep.
You'll find us there. It needs to be updated. The website probably. That's my daughter, and I won't let her update it right now because we've had so many changes. I was waiting till we moved and we did it because she's been all over me to like fix this, and I won't let her touch it. But I will now. We moved, so we're in Maryville Center Drive now, and it's a great building. And I love our office. I'm really happy where we did. It's kind of feels more of a lifestyle office for this group, because we had a nice building before, but it was like a big open office, and we overlook a parking lot, and it was a nice building, and it was a nice area, great location. But at Maryville Center, most of us have offices. We look at trees. There's a 3-mile walking trail right outside the building. There's like a little food place at the end of the hall. Like it's more of a night. I wanted to give them more. I wanted them to have a little bit more, and the building is just doing a lot. So we just moved in this month, so we should be there for a while. But yeah, you can look on the website. It has our email addresses attached. Like if you saw my picture, you can call that. You can call our main line too, and they'll find me. You know, they'll get me wherever I'm at too for you.
And you're on LinkedIn. I know that.
I am on LinkedIn.
Can find you out there. Can find Prosper CPAs out there.
Yes.
Holly Breuer, last name Breuer.
UER. Look at you.
I always have to remind myself.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I spell it. Breuer. That's how I spell it. So you're one of us. Yeah.
Well, I knew it was going to be a great conversation. You put two accountants together, we can still communicate and talk. Yes. And there's a story. Everybody's story is important. We can learn from it. And you've certainly done a lot in your lifetime, your career. You're giving a lot, and a lot for other people to learn from. So thank you for...
I appreciate that.
Having the courage to trust us and come on and share everything with us. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm glad. It's nice to be here with you.
This concludes another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. To hear more episodes of the show, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about our mission of helping women reach higher levels of success, visit sheliftproject.com and sign up to receive the latest news, ebooks, videos, and more.